In a monumental betrayal of the American people, the Republicans in the House passed their big, beautiful reconciliation bill that is going to cut $880 billion from Medicaid and $500 billion from Medicare. Trump lied on the campaign trail and said he would never cut Medicare. Republicans in the House lied and said they would never cut Medicare. Then we got a report from the Congressional Budget Office about what they're actually going to do with this bill, where the cuts are going to come from in order to fund massive tax breaks for a few incredibly wealthy people and some corporations. To be clear, I have focused primarily on the ways that this bill is going to harm Americans who are receiving SNAP benefits. People will be going hungry as a result of cuts to this bill, and the healthcare implications, the way that the Republicans are going to be yanking healthcare away from millions of people, including children, disabled folks, the elderly, and pregnant people. But also included in this bill is billions of funding for ICE, increasing student loan payments, and selling off more federal land. That's land that we all own in common. They want to sell that to private developers. And I will probably cover some of those equally nasty but less publicized elements of the reconciliation bill in a future video. But I want to actually respond to somebody in my YouTube comments who said, "Don't stress, Angela. John Thune in the Senate just announced that that bill is DOA. Senate Republicans are a no-go with the House's version of the one big beautiful bill. Please do not be lulled into a false sense that this is not going to get pushed through. The Republicans have every desire to push through all of these horrific cuts. They have been kissing the ring this entire time, and they're not going to stop now. And Trump wants this stuff to go through. He wants himself and all of his super rich buddies to get a big tax cut. So you may have heard that John Thune, leader in the Senate, has decided that there are things in this bill that he doesn't like, but that is the normal process of the passage of bills in the United States government. A bill originates in the House, and the House passes their version, and then they kick it over to the Senate. The Senate, they mark it up with red pen, they make changes to it, they pass their version, and then that version goes back to the House, and then they end up, compromising and coming together and finding something that they can both pass. Just because Senator John Thune said that what he has been handed from the House is not something that Republicans in the Senate are ready to greenlight, that doesn't mean that any of the things you care about that were on the chopping block, that the Republicans in the House were committed to slashing, that doesn't mean that any of those things are safe, and it doesn't mean that they are not still working to implement Trump's plan. 5 hours ago, Politico reported that just hours after the House passage, senators are already talking about big changes to the bill. This is the normal course of action. And this is where I don't want us to be lulled into complacency. I don't want us to think like, phew, it's over because the Senate is going to cut a bunch of this stuff. No. This is the time for us to get really active. This is the time for us to pressure our senators. The Senate already knows how much of this GOP bill is incredibly unpopular. They tried to sneak through all those cuts to Medicare. They tried to keep hush-hush all of the devastating things in this bill, and much of it leaked out, and Republicans in the House were like, well, we're still more afraid of Trump than we are of our constituents, so we're going to take the heat and we're going to pass this. Or they're not afraid of Trump at all. They actually agree with everything he wants to do because the Republican Party is a party of fascism now. Just remember, the midterms are coming up. Every Republican in the House is up for re-election in 2026. Please remember that every Republican in the House is up for re-election in 2026. Every last one of those fuckers who voted to try and take away healthcare for millions of Americans in order to give tax breaks to something like 70 super rich dudes. We all know what we need to be doing. We need to be organizing to make sure that those guys get voted out. If one of those Republicans is your representative, you need to be working right now to back a viable Democratic candidate in that district. So we do have an opportunity there when it comes to Republicans in the House. They all openly, clearly betrayed every American. They said, we clearly do not represent our constituents. We clearly do not represent the people. We did something that 80% of Americans oppose, which is cutting Medicaid. It was deeply, deeply unpopular, but they were going to try and ram it through anyway. And they were also trying to sneak in all of those Medicare cuts, which pretty universally Americans oppose. So we have an opportunity there to use that against them in the upcoming election. But I would like to pivot over to the Senate because this is where I think we have a bigger chance to work to stop this. All is not lost because the House passed this version of the bill, but likewise, all is not safe because the Senate was like, we do not like several aspects of this bill. Keep in mind, some of the senators who are not happy with what Republicans in the House did are saying that they didn't make enough cuts. They didn't cut enough programs. They're not saying pull back tax breaks for the super rich. They're saying, no, we should cut more shit so that those wealthy fat cats can get a tax break. So don't think that any Republican in the Senate is on your side or cares about you. But you do have a chance here to pressure them because they ultimately still answer to the electorate. So now is the time to get really organized in your community. You need to have everybody in your indivisible group or your neighborhood association or everybody in your Facebook group deciding that you're all going to call together on one day or in the same week about this issue so that the offices of our Republican senators are flooded with comments in deep opposition to any cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, any of the other awful aspects of this bill. We need to be to the point. We need to be specific. And it really matters that people call in large numbers about the same issue and that those people are constituents from that elected's district or state. Because if they get 500, 1,000 calls in a week that are like, don't you fucking dare cut a single penny from Medicaid, I will make it my life's mission to get you voted out if you vote yes for this. Please understand, pressure from constituents really, really does make a difference. And we cannot let up on them now just because they said we don't like what the House sent to us. Let me read a little bit from this breaking piece from Politico so that you understand better. I'm sure plenty of you with conservative Republican senators know what they are. You know that they don't have a problem with Trump's agenda. You know that they are on board with fascism. You know that they only care about the super rich to begin with. You know that they don't care about people struggling with poverty. However, those people still vote for those guys. Those senators still have to be elected by us. At the end of the day, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. And there's a lot of Republican senators who are up for election in 2026. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune made it very clear that the House bill is not going to pass the Senate without significant changes. Some of the members' demands are contradictory, with some fiscal hawks demanding beefed up spending reductions. They want to slash more stuff out of the budget, while others wanted to soften the House's Medicaid language and to preserve some green energy incentives. I hope now we'll actually start looking at reality, said Senator Ron Johnson. He's from Wisconsin and he is quite the piece of work. I know everybody wants to go to Disney World, but we just can't afford it. Johnson batted down the idea that he would fold under the arm twisting of Trump like many of his House counterparts did, because they're all weak little cowards. Listen, in the House, President Trump can threaten to primary any of the holdouts. And those guys want to keep their seats. I understand the pressure, but you can't pressure me that way. This is where I think we really have some key leverage. Trump has been consistently threatening Republicans in the House and the Senate. If you don't vote in line with my policies, I'm going to primary you. I'm going to make sure you lose your job. So who do they really need to be afraid of? Who really has the power to vote them out? Who absolutely can make them lose their jobs? Who are the people that they're supposed to be working for anyway? Who are the people that hired them? Us. And we absolutely can boot them out, and they need to be afraid of us more than they are afraid of Trump. Don't you worry about Trump's fringe candidates, Pookie. It's us. It's us you need to be afraid of. It's our votes that you're losing. Keep in mind that Ron Johnson doesn't want something that's better for the American people. He wants to find $6.5 trillion more to cut out of the budget line by line. And none of that is going to be the tax breaks for billionaires. It's cuts to spending. John Thune's goal is to have their version passed by July 4th. So we have between now and then to pressure the Senate. We have between now and then to build a massive public outcry against the things that they want to cut out of this bill. We need tremendous public pressure. John Thune said that the president is, quote, very happy and ready to work with the Senate. Other senators such as Josh Hawley, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins. Other Republicans such as Josh Hawley are concerned about things like cuts to disaster aid. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski also said they expect significant changes to the bill as well. Changing some of the language around Medicaid cuts, canceling tax credits, and pushing food aid funding onto the states. This is our chance to be pressuring our electeds to make a giant stink in public. The things they want to do are deeply unpopular with the American people. They are slashing the programs, the funding that we care about to give giant tax breaks to a few incredibly wealthy people. And they're going to drive up the debt ceiling $4 trillion to do it. Now is the time to be pressuring them. You need to be calling. You need to be organizing with your friends and neighbors to have coordinated batches of calls go out every day, every week. This has not been signed into law yet, and we need to make it deeply unpopular. We need to make it known what the Republicans are doing is a betrayal of the American people.